Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, the Supreme Court on Thursday sought the stand of the Centre, National Disaster Management Authority and others, referring to the videos of timber logs floating in floodwaters in Himachal Pradesh. The bench observed that the rampant illegal tree felling appeared to be taking place in the Himalayan region. Observing a balance ought to be struck between development and environment. The bench of Chief Justice B.R. Gavai and Justice K. Vinod Chandran also issued notices to the Ministry of Environment. The National Highway Authority of India, as well as the governments of Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Jammu Kashmir and Punjab. The CGI during the hearing asked Solicitor General Tushar Mehta to take note of the grim situation and ensure remedial steps. The petitioner sought constituting an independent expert committee to carry out geological, geotechnical or environmental investigation into all highway projects where landslides have occurred and assess the causes of floods and flash floods in the rivers, rivulets, streams, water courses, channels in the Himalayan states, particularly Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Jammu and Kashmir. Let me straight away go to my guest, Vimlendu Jha. Sir, the court has also entered this larger picture of the disaster that is taking place in Uttarakhand. So my question is very simple. Is there a way to reimagine Himalayas apart from being a tourist spot, apart from being, as a fun area, but as a heritage, something important for humanity?
Absolutely. So Karthik, actually it's a natural heritage and it's not just a tourism location. We end up looking at Himalayas and many of our forest areas and natural resources almost always as an economic capital. And today what has happened in the Supreme Court is extremely important because, we've actually seen thousands of trees and it looks like logs of trees rather than trees that have actually given way because of, these are the trees not that have fallen because of flash floods. This is totally a mafia, the timber mafia that's been operating in the Himalayas, and that's what the Supreme Court today also was alluding to. So in a way right now, indeed, we have to look at Himalayas not just as an economic resource. We'll have to look at Himalayas not just from the lens of national security, that the tunnels have to be built so that our army men should be able to move to the borders quickly enough, because that was the logic given for all the tunnel construction that has taken place in Himachal, and also a lot of these highways, the Char Dham road and many other roads that have actually taken place in Uttarakhand. But these visuals are clearly what we've been talking about, and several other reports that we're talking about. And today, very rich of the Supreme Court, and I don't mince my words, fine, Supreme Court has talked about how we need to really understand why these landslides have happened, and also a geological study of the Himalayan region. But unfortunately, it was the same Supreme Court that actually gave the go-ahead without environmental impact assessment to many of these projects. These environmental norms of our country, and more so with respect to the ecologically vulnerable area called Himalayas, was actually compromised, and Supreme Court played a role in that. And I think it's very, very important. So grandstanding, yes, fine. Perhaps there could be some recovery. Perhaps there could be some pause in so-called developmental activities, and almost like, lawlessness is what I would say, that because in last couple of decades, and more so in the last 15 years, we've seen every environmental norm of our country legally, in that sense, many organizations, institutions of the government were allowed to plunder the Himalayas. And the visuals that you're showing on your screen is the illegal tree falling. As I keep saying, that more than 1 lakh trees have actually been chopped after taking permission. And imagine the number of trees and the amount of forest that's actually been chopped without the permission, because we are talking about high reach of Himalayas, all this timber and proper logs that are actually floating in Beas. And today, in fact, I saw a video also near Hatni Kund. There was a log, which basically means that the Yamuna river also has a lot of this timber floating. So in Dharali we saw timber, in Ganga, in Yamuna we've seen timber, and today, of course, in Himachal, in both Satluj as well as in Beas, we've seen timber. And floating timber is only a symptom of larger disease that we have in governance or forest management or Himalayan management. And hope that rather than just summoning these agencies called NHAIA and other agencies, the government should be able to, ideally, the Supreme Court should be able to do something. As I said yesterday in your program, perhaps we will need to pause. Perhaps we'll need to undo some of these things, because there's no point fixing the same highway and making the same tunnel. If our narrative remains the same, we perhaps are preparing ourselves for the worst disaster.
Into the relationship between people in the Himalayas has become exploitative in nature. It's not sustainable.
It cannot be transactional. It cannot be a site for pilgrimage. You can't just go for Yamunotri, Gangotri, or go for Snow Peak Mountains in Shimla, because what we've actually seen, by the way, today, indeed, or this week, we've been talking about flash floods and landslides and cloudbursts in all these areas. The kind of climate events, starting from heat wave to, of course, the flash floods that we're talking about, to the water crisis last 3 years, we've been seeing what's been happening in Shimla. Shimla runs out of water every summer. And Uttarakhand, which is actually, the janani of or most of the prominent rivers. 500 million people of our country depend on Ganga and Yamuna, which is almost like, 1/3 of our population depends on these two rivers, and the most drought prone area right now. And you'll be very, very shocked that Uttarakhand, most districts of Uttarakhand actually has drought. So imagine the irony that there's drought and there's flash floods, there's illegal tree felling, there's also, as I'm sure in the month of June this year, your channel and many other channels were actually talking about forest fires. So, and all of this is a very, very solid, well-oiled nexus, and that needs to really stop, because what we are doing is, without realizing, for short-term gain, for our entertainment, for our great tourism,
but that's also that's
immediate.
called the, Vimlendu, that's also the underbelly. That's what you call the economy. This is the parallel economy. This is the parallel economy.
Imagine, and that's what we were talking about, that imagine you're in the long run, you're actually creating more loss to the economy. Because what this is going to do is affect your food security, affect your weather pattern further much. Because this flash flood is not just about a season or a day or a month. We're talking about recurrence of this again and again this year, and perhaps more frequent and more intense ones next year. So it's not just about, loss of life and livelihood or loss of a few trees and timber. It actually, Himalayas is a natural resource that almost Indian climate and Indian food security and water security,
absolutely,
and therefore also economics, not the black economy that we are talking about, but the white economy, the pure economy, and economy of individuals and of our society, absolutely, depends on this Himalayas, and it needs to be protected.
It needs to be protected, Vimlendu, but the larger issue is that, this economy is linked to the elections, That is why this is so rampant. The fact that these economies are linked to the larger political processes makes it so tough to handle, because you have so many vested interests in the system. Is
and
it
very
difficult?
Interesting, Karthik. It is party agnostic. Imagine in
Yes,
in
party
Uttarakhand
agnostic.
you have Congress, and in Himachal you have Congress. In Uttarakhand you have BJP. You have UT in Jammu and Kashmir. You have Aam Aadmi Party in Punjab. So it's irrespective of which party, and that's why yesterday, as I was talking about on your program, the executive, the engineers, the architects, the urban planners.
I've really run short of time, but I feel that Himalaya should not be seen as a resource space. It should be seen as a heritage. We have to reimagine our Himalayas.
It's a natural heritage.
Natural heritage, or nothing would be left of these beautiful hill states. Thank you, Vimlendu, for joining me. From such a far off place, you made time for us. So this is all I had on Point today. I will see you tomorrow at the same time. Thank you and good night.
Associate sponsor, Dyna Premium Beauty Soap. पहली झलक करे खूबसूरत।
Dreaming about me?
Love is to get lost in the look. Unlimit Love B6 Pack 2 starts at 21.9 lakh.
The power of Digi-Alkaline from Nippo Thor.
Being a chef, it's my priority to deliver taste in a plate with good presentation, unique innovation. You need to explore, you need to experiment.